Today's episode of Strong Links is brought to you by Dan and Van, Sleaford and the surrounding area's #1 man with a van service. And now for today's show.
Welcome to Extra Strong Links, a bonus episode of the Strong Links podcast. We're going to bring you the extended interviews with our brilliant guests. These are the bits we couldn't fit into the main show. I'm Rich, and I'm here with my good friend Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Rich. So, Rich, who have we got coming up on this month's episode of Extra Strong Links?
Well, in this episode, we continue our chat with business and leadership guru Paul Starbuck from Starbuck Associates. Paul works with business owners and senior leaders across the region, helping them improve performance, strengthen culture, and lead with clarity when the pressure's on. He's seen what strong leadership looks like, and he's seen what happens when it's missing. Today we're getting into what really makes a great leader, the mistakes business owners might repeat, and what leaders can do better.
Paul, welcome to Extra Strong Links.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
So, during our conversation in the Strong Links episode, we discussed your background and how your business, Starbuck Associates, helps its clients. But in this episode, we really want to focus in on leadership and how it's the linchpin of any successful business or organisation. Firstly, for our listeners, how would you define leadership?
Well, that's a big question.
Yeah, it is.
That's a really big question to kick off the podcast. I think if you Googled leadership, you'd probably get several thousand different definitions of leadership. There are hundreds and hundreds of books on leadership. For me, it's about how do you galvanize, motivate a team of people around a common cause or problem. How do you help people become brilliant? How do you help people grow? How do you help people fulfill their aspirations, but also the needs of a business or a function of some kind? That's what I would describe as leadership.
Yeah.
Is it, would you say it's your kind of skill to be able to identify when you're dealing with these groups of people? Are you good at identifying who's going to be the best kind of leaders out of those groups? And
you get good at identifying potential and talent and good leaders. Good leaders, I think, are people that are almost selfless in their approach. It's not about them, it's not about their ego, not about their performance, their growth, their bonus. Good leaders, I think, are invested more in the people and how do I help the people around me become great. Because if you invest your time and your efforts into the people, the people will therefore then produce the things they need to produce for you. So it's selfless. I think the role of a leader, being a good leader, is quite a selfless kind of thing. It's not about you. There's a book called Leaders Eat Last. I think that sums it up for me. That style of leadership, that kind of support of the people around you to help them become great. I think that's brilliant leadership.
I suppose it's facilitating the people around you.
Yeah.
To be able to do the best they can at their specific jobs.
Yeah, and therefore, when you're in and out of teams and in and out of different organisations all the time, you start to see and appreciate people that you spot them reasonably quickly. They feel like a great leader. They've got a lovely way about them. The way in which they interact with people, not just in the team meetings or in the way in which they interact with each other in the corridors, in the tea rooms. You sense and you feel the good leaders, and they are generally people that are invested in other people's success, not their own success, but their other people's success. But what we see the others. We see the other people that are probably more invested in their own performance, their own growth, and we spot them as well. So our role as leaders is to help people from wherever they are to wherever they want to get to. What's that kind of goal for them? And sometimes when we're working with someone on a one-to-one basis, we might be drilling into, what is their current leadership style? How do they go about things? What's good about what you do? What do your people around you think about your leadership skills? So we might do a 360 kind of feedback kind of thing, so we get some real good feedback around the leadership impact that somebody has. We might use some psychometrics, so behavioural psychometrics that really tease out what is this person really like? What are the behaviours and how do they play out in the workplace? So when we're working with somebody one-to-one and we get this feedback, we can see what they're like as leaders. We can help them understand where they are in the context of where they are now, but also in terms of where they want to get to. And then we can be really clear about the things they might need to work on as part of their growth, their success.
When the pressure hits, when there's a pressured situation, can you tell who is a leader and who would fit more of a managerial role?
It's a bit more difficult to see it in a pressure situation. Some of the psychometrics we use will give us a lens of what somebody's like when they're under a bit more pressure. So that's helpful in that kind of context. We all wear a mask at work. Some wear a mask more so than others. But the more of a mask you wear, the more pressure you put on yourself, the more energy you burn, because you're trying to be somebody that you're not really. So that kind of leadership mask that we put on, but when you're under a lot more pressure, that becomes a lot harder. So we can see that through some of the psychometrics, some of the tools we use. But it wouldn't really tell us whether somebody's a good leader or a good manager, or either or. And the situation may mean that somebody could be a great leader, but in a crisis situation could not be the person you want to kind of lead a crisis situation. And equally, a good manager may also not be the right person. So it's not easy to kind of define that in that kind of way, because the situation will demand something else. And the crisis situation, the building's on fire versus we're missing our profit number. They can be very different things, and how people show up in those crisis moments can also be very different.
Yeah, I suppose is there a point at which somebody who's not a true leader, that mask slips under pressure? Invariably, yes. It will slip out. There'll be some behavioural element, because back to that mask. If you're trying to be somebody you're not, and you put yourself under pressure, then that mask is more likely to slip. So it becomes more visible for people, and people will see it. The way I always think about it is in terms of a leadership shadow. As a leader, we all cast a shadow, and how you see me and how you see me might be very, very different. So we all cast a shadow. We also shine a light on people and shine a light on things. But the more aware that we are of the shadow that we cast and the impact we have on people, the more likely it is we can do something about it. And it's really interesting, because I think about my career. You go into one team and they want you to be this way as a leader, and you adapt your style accordingly to fit what they need to help them become the best of them. But then the same leader, me, goes and works in a different team, and what they need is something very different. And therefore you've got to adapt your style again to help the people around you in this new team become brilliant and help them. So as a leader, it's not just one style, one approach. You've got to be adaptable to each individual situation, whether it's a crisis moment or a day-to-day stuff. You've got to adapt yourself to get the best out of the people around you. And that's hard. That's really hard, particularly when you come through the ranks and you're a manager and you taught how to do things, or you spend a long time in the shadow of another manager and they kind of show you the way kind of thing. And then when you're in charge, it's like, well, I only know one way of doing things. Well, that's great. You see this in football, don't you?
Yeah, you see that in football.
Good example. That adaptability, and you're working. When you go to a different team, you're working with a whole different group of people.
Yeah, and you're working in a different system. So we all work within systems. Your business here, you work in a system here. Home life, you work in a system. The community, we work in systems. Well, when you work in a system of a business and a culture and a way of doing things, and you get the hang of that and you work out how to do it, and you become successful. When you come out of that system and go into a different system, just the same as your football metaphor, it doesn't mean to say you're going to be great. It doesn't mean to say you're going to be brilliant, because you've got to learn to operate in a different system with different people, and you've got to adapt your style therefore accordingly. And that can be really hard.
So imagine that sort of adaptability, changing the style of your approach with clients. Is that something that you've learnt in your training, or do you think it's just something that you learn through experience? Is it a combination of the two?
I think for me personally, leadership was through experience. So 35 years as a leader. So I left school at the age of 18 and took a trainee manager's job, and had a team of people to look after at 18, and they're all older than me, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how do I get them to do the things they need to do? And then when I started to try that, they just told me to, go away, little boy, like, oh my gosh, how do you do this? This is really hard. It's a lot harder than it looks, thinking, I'm a training manager now. Yeah, I've got some stripes. Yeah, I'm important. No, you're not. You're not. You might have a title, but it doesn't mean to say you have any respect or any right to get the best out of the people around you. So you learn these things. So from the age of 18 through to when I left corporate world, I had lots of different jobs, lots of different teams, lots of practice of how to be a great manager. And then when you become a great manager and you get asked to do more leadership type roles, then leadership roles are very different to management roles. So you have to learn how to do a different job, and you have to practice and practice and practice. The way I describe it is practice. What we're doing as leaders is practicing our art, our craft, to help get the best out of the people around us, and being intuitive enough and being grounded enough, humble enough to kind of recognize, well, I'm not getting the best out of this situation. What do I need to do differently in my leadership to get the best out of that person or that situation? And that's hard, because sometimes you're like, ego gets in the way, personalities get in the way, all kind of things get in the way. But that's what we should be practicing. We should be practicing, how do I become a great leader to get the best out of the people around me so they can be brilliant? Because when they're brilliant, the team, the business will fly.
You must deal with lots of different types of characters. I imagine, you must kind of need to know what makes people tick, and having sort of deep empathy with people, and the range of personalities that you must deal with. Does that come into it? It's sort of understanding what makes people tick, and it's a lot of psychology, I imagine, is involved.
It's a lot of emotional intelligence, I think. Maybe a bit of psychology, a lot of intuition as well, and it gets more complicated. I've operated and worked with people in 46 different countries, so you've got the cultural element as well as leadership, sector kind of biases and stuff that goes on. Different sectors work in very different ways. So there's all of that to consider. And then you're trying to put your arms around it and help the person in front of you improve whatever it is they want to improve on. It's not for me to decide what they want to improve on. We can do the diagnostics, we can do the psychometrics, we can get the 360 feedback, but if the leader doesn't want to change a certain aspect, that's entirely up to them. So it's up to the leader to decide, well, actually, given everything, I want to work on this and this and this. So yeah, we're having to work quite hard to understand where they are, what's going on for them, some of those internal dialogues, and and then start to kind of help them move forward with some of the stuff that has been identified. But yeah, it is difficult. But I guess the more you do it, the more you practice being a coach, the more you kind of see it, the more you kind of appreciate it, and the more skilled you get asking the right questions to draw out the right information. And I'm not drawing the information out for me, I'm drawing the information out to help them become more self-aware of their impact and their leadership on others.
What leadership mistakes do you see again and again?
I think career growth is a really interesting one. We start our careers at the first level, and we're generally with the operator. We're doing the doing, and then we get invited to become the manager, and it's a different skill set. All of a sudden, the people on the shop floor, the people that were teammates before, all of a sudden we've got to tell them what to do, and we've got to appraise them, and we've got to tell them off when they've done something wrong, and then we've got to, we've got to praise them as well. So all of a sudden there's a whole new range of skills that we need to learn that we didn't have before. And it feels uncomfortable because we're asked to learn new skills, and we don't necessarily get the support to learn those skills and be comfortable with them. So what generally happens is that people just kind of keep reverting back to the operator because it's more comfortable there. But eventually they get a hang of it, and then you go from manager to more leadership roles. Well, leadership is about context, it's about direction, where we're going. It's still accountable for the day-to-day stuff, still accountable for all the managers, but sitting in an office thinking about strategy, where we're going to be in 3 years' time, that's a whole different skill set. How do I set culture? How do I set direction so that the people around do great? That's very different. So because it's uncomfortable, people collapse into doing the role below. And I see a lot of organizations, a lot of examples where people are generally working at the wrong level. They're paid to do a level, but for whatever reason, they're working at a lower down. And some of that is about the culture of the organisation. Some of that is about the senior leadership teams asking questions that are not necessarily relevant at that level of leadership, and pushing people down into that kind of almost micromanaging kind of sense. So what I recognise is that if we actually help people become brilliant at the job they're asked to do, and we help everybody else around to do the same, all of a sudden the system works a whole lot better. I mean, that's what people in organisational design do. They design a system that allows the work to be done, the business to flourish, the business to move forward. But if everybody's doing the wrong job, they're doing the job lower, then, well, who's doing the directional stuff at the top? Who's setting culture at the top? Who's moving this business forward? Because everybody's doing the job of something else. So that's one of the most common things I see. That
makes
people
sense.
aren't necessarily doing the job that they're asked to do or paid to do.
The natural progression from a manager is to go up into a leadership role, but as you say, it's a completely different skill set.
Different skill set. The thing with that is, of course, at the same time, you're also still accountable for the day-to-day stuff. So the operator at the sharp end of the business, when they make a mistake, well, you might be in your ivory tower as a director, you're still accountable for that person there.
Yeah.
So you know, because of that accountability piece as well, people get pulled into that to make sure this person doesn't make a mistake.
Yeah.
But again, they're not working at the right level. And letting go and trusting people to do things, empowering people to do the job they're asked to do, that's difficult.
Yeah.
How much of your role then do you think is about coaching leaders to sort of lead themselves in terms of looking after themselves? Because there was an interesting quote I read on, I think it was your Facebook page. Someone said, "Everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you." And it's all about sort of recognizing that sometimes you need to take a bit of rest, take a bit of time off, and that's kind of like self-management, isn't it? Does that come into your role?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Quite
a bit, because back to the point we're making, if you're trying to do your own job and you're trying to do somebody else's job at the same time, it can be quite tiring. It can be quite hard work, and people are stretched and pulled and in every single direction. So that can be really tiring, and we see people that are either close to burnout or certainly there's some indication there. So helping people help themselves, helping people recognise their patterns, their leadership, the shadow that they cast, but also get them to think about, well, what is your job, and how do you practice doing your job more of the time, and how do you help the people around you practice doing their jobs? Because when you do that, the design of the system works better. So we can then help them with, how do you manage your time? How do you look after yourself? How do you create space for you to kind of mentally unwind? Because it's a really important part of being a great leader, is you've got to have time for yourself. You've got to have thinking time. You've got to have breathing space. You've got to have proper thinking time to think about not just you or whatever, but you need to think about the future and the direction and all the stuff that's asked of us as a leader. So it's a challenge, but we see it quite often with leaders. How do we help them become brilliant at what they need to do and what they should be doing? But how do we also give them the skills to make sure they unwind, they look after themselves and look after the people around them as well?
It's about seeing the smaller picture and the bigger picture at the same time, isn't it? And I think, that's quite...
And often leaders don't necessarily see it, because, when you're in the thick of it and you're in budget season and review season and that season, you're in it. You might, I'm really busy. That's invariably is the kind of thing I hear from leaders when they come in. How are you getting on? Yeah, it's really busy. It's really busy, yeah. You can only do so much. So if you can only do so much, what is the so much you need to do, which is your job? Because if you can do that bit first and then help others do their role as well, then it will work a whole lot better. But if you're doing your job and you're doing somebody else's job over there and somebody else's job over there, and people in your team are doing their job for them as well, then you're going to be really busy.
So would you say that's a problem with the individual's problem or a cultural problem?
It can be both. It can definitely be both. I've seen it where the culture is brilliant, but somebody's working at a level down simply because they've not got the hang of doing the new job. when we grow into the new job and the leadership kind of role, it's a different skill set. It takes practice and practice and practice. But equally, I do see the situation where culturally the business kind of brings people down to work at the wrong level. So I see it both ways. I probably see more the cultural piece than I see the other way around. But it can be a challenge.
Yeah. I think the most extreme example of that is Jeff Bezos. He said that he makes 2 decisions a day, something like that. He does 2 bits of work a day, but they're no one else can do those.
Yeah, he's doing the job that he needs to do, the job that only he can do.
Yeah. And
I think there's something in that. We will quite often work with a leader and get them to think about, okay, so what's in your diary? What are the things that you're doing, you're paying attention to? And what are those things is actually your role and what's not your role?
Yeah.
And if it's not your role, where does it actually sit? Not to kind of just, get rid of things, but where does it need to sit? Where should it sit in the organisation? Is it below you, above you? Is it your peer group? Because if we can get people practicing doing their role first and foremost, like Jeff Bezos is doing, then we're more likely to succeed. Then if you can help the people below you do the job that they're asked to do, then the system will work better. And it takes stress out of it, because people are feeling as though, well, I'm doing the job I'm being asked to do. Great, I feel good about that. I'm doing a good job in that. I'm doing a job that's proportionate and is fair and reflective. I'm not doing other people's jobs, so they don't feel as though I'm being put upon or unduly challenged or anything like that. So the system works when we get people to work at the right level, doing the right role. But there is something around, how do we get people to do the job that they're asked to do first and foremost before they start doing everybody else's job?
Paul, do you have any leaders that you admire personally? Do you have any heroes?
My old boss, Debbie, brilliant leader, really good, great fun, great energy, real passion for people, passion for getting things done, challenging. She was very challenging, could be quite demanding as well, but had a lovely way about it. You wanted to work for Debbie, you wanted to kind of help Debbie become great at what she did, but she was very good at stretching you, growing you, pushing me, and not just me, the people around. And I remember we'd had a conversation around what next for me in Inside Boots, and we talked about lots of different jobs, and the role that kind of was left behind almost was to do a HR role. And I just laughed. I'm like, HR, I work in the stores organisation. I work with people and teams and stores, and brilliant, it's great, and big regional teams. Doing a HR role was like, I'm not sure about that. Anyway, this conversation carried on over several months, to the point where I came back from holiday in August one particular year, and I got a message from Debbie saying, ring me, it's really, really important. I was like, oh my God, what's happened? Oh my gosh. I'm walking down the stairs of the airplane, Bank Holiday Monday, August. Everything okay? That job we talked about. Yeah, it was just a bit of fun, Debbie. That's just a bit of fun. I'm on holiday, Debbie. It's just a bit of fun. No, start tomorrow. Oh my God, what do you mean? And completely outside of my comfort zone. I wasn't a HR leader. I didn't know much about HR, to be honest. I knew a lot about leadership, but HR, the discipline and the kind of the structure, I didn't know anything about it. But anyway, she said, come and see me. Come and see me. Let's have a chat about it tomorrow. And, Debbie, I'm not doing it. You'll be fine. Come on, just give it a go. Come on, be my HR partner. Have a go at it. And this is a big team, huge team, but thoroughly enjoyed it. So she had a great way of just putting you in situations, challenging situations, to help grow you, to help develop you, to give you the confidence and the platform to work from. So, made huge mistakes in the first few weeks. It's like, oh, don't worry about that. We'll fix that. Don't worry about that. So she made things right for you, but she challenged you and she pushed you. So for me, one of the best leaders I've ever worked for, and I had the opportunity to work for Kevin. He was also a very good leader, but very different. So personally, I've worked with some great leaders.
What qualities would you say that they had that made them stand out as great leaders?
They're both humble, both very grounded, good fun, good energy, good can do. They worked at the right level of leadership, I guess, and they encourage you to work at your level, but also to think about what you need to learn to get to the next level.
Debbie must have identified something in you, must have seen something in you that gave her confidence to...
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, that's a skill of a leader, isn't it?
Yeah.
Identifying sort of just certain qualities and attributes that an individual has.
Yeah, helping people kind of, recognise something in them and saying, you could do something with this, you could go with this, and giving people confidence and inspiring people to step outside of their comfort zone and do something different. I mean, that HR role was very different. And I was completely out of my depth. I had no idea what some of these things they were talking about. But I loved it. It was great because, very quickly I thought, well, I recognise that, you're a good leader. You've been asked to do this job because you're a good leader of people. The subject matter you're now leading is different, but you're bright enough to kind of ask the questions. Just ask the questions. How's this work? How's that work? What do we do with this situation? What do we do with that? And of course, very quickly, you're learning about what is that world like. How do I work inside that system to get the best out of the people, I had a big team, a huge team. My role wasn't to be the HR expert. There were plenty of them around me. My role was to bring the leadership to that. And that was the bit that I kind of got my head around pretty quickly, because that's what she was asking me to do. Go and lead a team of people, but it's not a team of people that you're used to. They do different things. Go lead them and be brilliant with them.
Yeah.
And interestingly, just going almost full circle here, when I left the world of boots and then started to think about becoming a coach, a professional coach, the first person I rang was Debbie.
Oh, right.
And I said, Debbie, I'm thinking about becoming an executive coach. And she went, about time too. And I'm like, what do you mean? Hold on a minute. Where's that come from, Debbie? Well, because you're a brilliant coach. You are a brilliant coach. You'll be amazing in this space. You'll be absolutely brilliant. I'm sure you'll work hard to learn your craft as you would do with anything else. You'll be brilliant. Go have fun. Go do it. Go be brilliant. And, for me, that was a really big endorsement of, do you know what, I must be making the right decision, because Debbie's saying, oh my gosh.
How do you know when it's time for a leader to step aside?
Well, that's a good question. How do I know? I don't know whether I do know. I think my role is to stimulate the thinking and the leaders, to get them to think about whether that the time is right to step aside. And sometimes the opportunity is not there for that person to step aside, other than leaving the organisation altogether, or retiring, or doing something like that. So, sometimes we come across the situation where there's a really good leader at the top and there's really good leaders underneath, but the person at the top's not going anywhere, and these people are going, well, I want to grow, I want to evolve, which is probably how I felt in my last days of Boots. I've got more to give, give me something else to get involved with, but there didn't seem to be anything else to get involved with. So I made a decision to leave. But
it's just, you often see people, the motivation for great leadership has, had its day, and they outstay in their tenure. Is that the right term?
It can be, yeah. I mean, I don't get to work with a lot of those, because coaching, you've got to want to change. And if somebody's in a role, they don't really want to change, they're quite happy doing what they're doing, they don't really want to push themselves outside their comfort zone, they're not going to say, hey, can you give me a coach who's going to give me a really hard time and really push me and stretch me to move to another level. But we do see them, and I'm the kind of guy that goes, you know what, feels like you're coasting here, what can we do to get you going, what else can you get involved with? And start to stimulate the thinking around possibilities. What can they get involved with? How can they make their job a little bit more interesting? How can they make it more interesting with the people around them? What else can they get involved with? And that invariably will stimulate people to think about what could they do. And I've seen some really good stuff in that space where people have just kind of lost their way a little bit. It's all become a bit samey, a bit kind of... But then we've had some of these conversations, we've stimulated some ideas, and before you know it, they've gone off to talk to the chief exec about leading a piece of work, or they've suddenly decided they're going to put themselves outside their comfort zone, they're going to lead the company conference, or they're going to do different things that just allows them to practice something else, to get involved with something else, so that they learn something else, so they contribute something else. Because I think leadership is a fluid thing. It's always about moving and learning and growing and developing. When we are static and we're not really
Has to be
doing that.
Forward momentum. Then.
Yeah, when we're static in that kind of way, then actually what's actually really happening is that we're actually falling backwards.
Yeah.
And if you can catch those people before they fall too far backwards, then brilliant, and just kind of help re-inspire, re-motivate them to become brilliant again, then gold dust.
Yeah.
Right, well, let's leave leadership aside for one moment. We've got another question that we'd like to ask all our guests on the show. Paul, where is your favourite place to visit in Lincolnshire?
Billingborough. Most definitely Billingborough, followed by Lincoln itself. I grew up in Skellingthorpe, moved to Lincoln at about the age of 16 for a couple of years, and then Tesco relocated me to the West Midlands. But yeah, in Lincolnshire itself, Billingborough is best for sure. Great village, great people, great neighbours. Brilliant community, but outside of that, Lincoln itself is a beautiful city. Beautiful city. When you drive across the A road and you see the cathedral lit up in the background, it's amazing. It looks really special.
It's a lovely city, isn't it?
It's a brilliant city.
I think we take it for granted because we live here, but it is. I was there today, and it's just up the hill. It's lovely. Yeah. Any particular places, any restaurants that you'd recommend? Or places to visit?
Well, the Bellgate, in and around the Bellgate is good. Is good fun. We've been to see a couple of concerts at the Castle this last couple of years, so that's been pretty special.
Who'd you see there?
We saw James there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The group James. The previous day he broke his ankle in Plymouth, I think it was, or Portsmouth, or something like that, and they wheeled him out on stage in a wheelchair. He was still determined to do it. He was not letting his fans down, so I thought that was brilliant. And then they still had him dancing around and standing on the railings and all kinds of stuff. They were holding him up. He was brilliant. It was absolutely amazing. It was really good. But yeah, that part of the city I think is brilliant. It's lovely. It's there's a lot going on. There's a lot of energy and there's a lot of kind of fun and that type of stuff. So yeah, the top end of the hill I think is brilliant.
Yeah. They're relaying the cobbles. I was up there today. Relaying the cobbles down Bellgate. Yeah. It's it's a good choice.
Thank you.
And where can people find you if they want to find out more about?
Yeah, on the website.
Your website.
Yeah, StarbuckAssociates.com. You'll find all the kind of about the programs we offer, about the Coach magazine that we talked about in the last episode, and all the kind of materials, supporting kind of materials, and our contact details, the history, and all that kind of stuff. It's all in the website. Website's huge. It's got lots of stuff in it, so lots of stuff you can download and kind of interact with.
Good website.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Paul. It's been really great speaking with you.
Yeah, thanks again, Paul. It's been very insightful, and thanks for joining us again.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Today's episode of Strong Links was brought to you by Dansun Property Services, where quality work meets local care. From reliable maintenance jobs to property refurbs, call Dansun Property Services today. See you next time.